Hi, I'm Joe and welcome to the channel. In this micro lesson, I wanted to show different chord types. When you first start playing guitar, you're traditionally taught triads, which is a chord type and a great foundational one. In this video, however, I wanted to show you some other chord types as well, just to expand your chord vocabulary. So let's start with a quick primer. We need to understand how chords are built. Chords are built off of the major scale. So in this case here, we're going to take the C major scale. So C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Now off of every single one of those notes in the major scale, I can build a chord off of that by using a specific formula. In this case here, let's talk about the triad. A triad is built off of the root, the third, and the fifth of that scale. So if we're in C, the root is C. And if we go up to the third, C, D, E, we now have a root of C, the third of E. And if we keep going up to the fifth, we have C, D, E, F, G is the fifth, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we have a triad because we have the root, C, E, and G. Understanding what makes up a chord is very important, not just for your rhythm playing, but also for your lead playing. If you know what the chord progression is, and you know the notes that make up each chord in that chord progression, you can target those in your solo, which is always going to be the greatest and strongest notes to hit. They're going to be the chord tones when you're playing over a song. So what we just built here was the C major triad. Now that's one type of triad, right? We have a major triad. We can have a minor triad, which now takes that third that we had, and it's going to lower it. It's going to make it a flat 3. So we're going to have C again, E flat, and then G. Now we have a minor sound. We can also take it and tweak it a little bit further and make an augmented chord. That would be basically taking the root C, the major third, and then sharpening the fifth. So now we have a G sharp on top. We can also make a diminished triad. So if we take our C, do the flat 3, which is E flat, and flat the G to G flat, we now have a diminished chord. And you can see how they have different flavors to them. Major, minor, augmented, and diminished. So that's triads. That's the one type of chord. The other types of chords we can get into are suspended chords or sus chords, you might hear them called. What a sus chord is, it basically takes the third and replaces it with something else. It could either be the fourth or the second degree in the scale. So let's go back to our C chord. And remember, we have the triad of root, third, and fifth. So C, E, G. If we want to replace this and make this a C sus2, we're going to add a D instead of the E. So we're going to replace the third E with a D. And we get this sound. Suspended chords act like they're floating on air. That's why I think they're called suspended chords. It just gives a little bit of airiness to the chord voicing. So here was major. Here was C sus2. Now if we want to do a sus4, instead of replacing the third with the second, we're going to replace it with the fourth degree. C, D, E, F. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's replace that. So now we have C major. If we go to C sus4. And for me, the C sus4 always wants to sound like it wants to go back to the triad, the original triad of C major, to resolve itself. So there you have another chord type, suspended chords. Again, that's just taking your third and replacing it with the second degree in the scale or the fourth degree in the scale. Another chord type is an added tone chord. And this sometimes gets confused a little bit with the suspended chord. An added tone chord still maintains the original triad in it, but it adds an additional note, maybe a sixth, a ninth, or an 11th. Now don't get intimidated by those numbers. We already know that we're using 1 through 8 as our scale. So a ninth simply is the second degree of the scale, just an octave higher. And that's how you get there. So if we were doing our C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, that's 8 notes. If we want to go up one more, repeating the scale, we're now at the ninth, which is D. So let's take this and make now an added tone chord. We're going to make a C, add 9. So we have our C triad again, C, E, G, and let's put down our D. That's a C add 9. For the sake of keeping this a micro lesson, I'm not going to play all the other examples of an added tone chord, but there are others, and I encourage you to look those up and start experimenting and playing with those. A borrowed chord type is when you're taking a chord from a completely different key than what you're playing in, and you're throwing it into your chord progression. Let's go ahead and take a chord progression in the key of C, like this. So I'm playing C, G, D minor, E minor, F, back to C. All of those chords were diatonic to the key of C, meaning that all of those chords were built off of notes in the C major scale. Well, what would happen if we substituted the E minor with an E flat? E flat is not part of C major. Let's see what that sounds like. It's a lot of fun to experiment with borrowed chords because it adds something totally new to an existing chord progression, and it makes it very interesting not only for you to play it, but also for the listener to hear. The final chord type that I want to touch on in this video are seventh chords. And seventh chords are probably the largest family of chord types that you can have. There's so many different chords that live inside of those. And I'm not going to play them all for you here, but I'm going to give you a little bit of a flavor of them. Well, what is a seventh chord? A seventh chord is when you take your triad again that we learned, and we're adding a fourth note to it. And that would be a third above the fifth degree. Remember, a triad is built off of a root, a third, and a fifth. Well, if we add another note to that, a fourth note to that, a third above the fifth, we're going to get a seventh. So what does that mean? Well, let's look at our C chord again. We have our C, E, and G. Now let's add a fourth note on top of that. C, E, G. The seventh would be B. Right, if we count up the scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And that would be a C major 7. If we were playing a C minor 7, it would sound like this. So here's C minor regular, C minor, just triad. C minor 7. Let's look at one more seventh chord, and that's a dominant seventh chord. Again, taking the triad that we already have, but we're going to make it a flat 7 on top, but keeping the major triad in the bottom. So we're going to still have C, E, G, but a B flat thrown into the mix. These are really pretty chords, and you can really start to expand your chord vocabulary just by investing in learning more about seventh chords. So exploring different chord types will really help you enhance your own chord progressions, but also your lead playing as well, because you'll understand what notes are made up of those chord types when you're playing over them for your lead lines. Well, that's it for this video. If you liked what you saw and found any value in it whatsoever, please do me a favor and consider supporting the channel for free by subscribing down below, hit the like button, and knock on the bell and you'll be notified when the next video comes out. As always, I wish you a great day.